Welcome back, my kings, queens, and fellow non-binary leaders. Today, we're gonna finally continue with the Sunshine Secret. I'm writing this just so that you're aware. But yeah, we're at part 4 with the Sunshine Secret. Thank you for Dreamer for the request. And now, let's get started. No long intro. I hope you're ready. Sweat dripped down his forehead and adrenaline was coursing through his veins. An almost manic-looking smile stretched his lips upwards as he rushed from one side of the court to the other, pulling his arms back and jumping until most of his upper body was over the net. Atsumu set the ball to him perfectly and it slammed down, echoing through the hall as it hit the ground. Wild cheers erupted around them and he threw his fists into the air before meeting up with his team to celebrate. That was set number 2. One more and they could celebrate victory. He was breathing heavily as they reached the bench and immediately filled his stomach with water as he desperately needed right now. This had been the 3rd set. They lost the first but gained momentum in the second, and they were not letting it go yet. Still, his muscles ached. So far, he had only been swapped out once after the 20-point mark in set 2. He had agreed on a signal with coach to make sure he was staying safe and taking a break when needed. It had earned them a few odd looks as they risked their momentum for seemingly no apparent reason, but it worked out in the end. Even now, Atsumu threw him an odd glance as their manager checked in on him again. The attention the Omega received was getting noticeable. He just hoped certain vulture-like reporters weren't picking up on it as well. Still, he gave his mate a bright grin and dispelled any concerns and steeled himself for the next set. Time to finish this. He jumped up, and for a moment his vision blurred. He caught himself quickly enough for no one to notice, but had to ask twice for Mian's next instructions as the ringing in his ears only faded slowly. He probably just got up too fast. The game proceeded viciously, and he loved it. The dizziness faded quickly, and he just gritted his teeth as it caught up with him after particularly high jumps and sudden sprints. He could do this. They had fought beyond the 25-point mark again already, and were fighting tooth and nail to get 2 points ahead. He couldn't do a 5th set. They needed to end this now. He dove forward, just aware enough to put all his weight onto his chest and shoulders to protect his stomach. With a slap, the ball rebounded from his forearm and shouts echoed behind him for the next attack. His eyes zeroed in on Atsumu. The setter got under the ball quickly and waited. His save was high enough. He needed to get up and mix back in with the attackers. But as he turned his body and brought his feet under himself, his eyes targeting a spot at the net, the sound around him was suddenly gone. His knees gave out on him and he fell back onto the floor. His whole body felt as heavy as lead. He couldn't get back up again. All focus was on the front. His eyes too searched the now blurry net as his upper body followed his legs and collapsed like the strings had been cut. The ground was cool. Painfully, he arched his neck back and dragged his cheek over the floor to see what was happening. Sakusa leapt up and scored the point, putting them 1 point ahead again. Time seemed to slow as he only caught every second picture, making the movements look oddly stuttered and blurred. Atsumu high-fived their mate who let it happen and turned, expecting to have to fend off Hinata and Bokuto next. He looked confused when only Bokuto blocked his sight until suddenly Atsumu caught out sharply. Atsumu screamed his excitement as they scored. Only 1 more point. He high-fived Sakusa before the other could say no, and quickly turned around to find Hinata and congratulate him on his receive. But he wasn't there. As their teammates stormed towards them to celebrate the point and hyped themselves up for the next, one was missing. His eyes widened and his sense spiked sharply as he spotted him. Shoyo! He ran over, earning himself confused looks before anxious worry broke out around him. His scent blockers failed to block his fear for his mate, and it was close to causing a packed response. He hadn't gotten up after the receive. He must have slipped, or been too exhausted. The game was more demanding than most. General confusion spread around them, and through their bond, Atsumu could feel Sakusa's panic, while the Atlas still seemed in the dark about what was happening, having gathered to reassemble after the lost point. Sho? Here, let me help you. But Hinata didn't react. As he reached him, he noticed that his eyes had closed and he was breathing heavily. Sweat had drenched his shirt and was glistening on his skin. He shook him gently and pulled him into his arms as he still didn't react. Sho, wake up! Wake up! Barnes reached him first, and Atsumu let out an almost feral growl as he got too close. Immediately, he jumped back and stretched his arm out to keep Bokuto from approaching as well. Coach Foster rushed over, but Atsumu only pulled Hinata tighter and his growl grew in volume. His mate was hurt. His canines grew and he protectively leaned over the smaller, pressing him to his chest. His eyes scanned the crowd assembling around him suspiciously, and he felt more and more threatened as it grew. He couldn't hear them anymore. Sakusa broke through, and as he saw Shoyo, his pupils shrank and he rushed to their side. Atsumu led him, were protectively looming over both of them as his alpha leaned down to inspect their mate. Kageyama must have felt their panic through the bond because he was suddenly there, shouting. With both his alpha mates by his side to help protect the currently most vulnerable, Atsumu relaxed a little. Tobio was panicking, mirroring Atsumu in his aggression. The paramedics that had rushed over to help were kept at bay by them until suddenly Bokuto and Barnes both grabbed Atsumu from behind and dragged him away despite the feral growl that escaped him. The Adler said got the same treatment by Ushijima and Thomas, while Sakusa had somehow managed to remain a smidge calmer and let himself be restrained by Mian and Inunaki. His muscles were tensed as he watched the medics kneel down next to his mate, his vulnerable, injured mate, and he gritted his teeth. Bring me to Atsumu. Atsumu barely heard what was said, but suddenly nothing save for the patchouli scent of his mate filled his senses. He looked up at him, eyes still feral and fangs elongated to defend. Get your act together! Shoyo needs you! At once, his eyes flew over to the medics again, leaning over him. Protective rage filled his veins once more until Sakusa grabbed his chin forcefully and made him look up from where he was hanging in Bokuto's and Barnes' arms. Dumbass, not like that! They're helping him! Don't look at them, look at me! He did, and slowly his breathing calmed as he stared into the dark eyes resembling deep pools of black ink, challengingly. Good. No, stay like that until you have snapped out of it. Going feral like that, have you lost your mind? He only growled in response, but it was much quieter now, like a rumble in his chest. Still, he counted himself lucky that Omi, other than him, was level-headed enough not to take the tone seriously. The Raven sighed in response. He's right. You really are a nuthead. Then he turned around to where they were trying the same with Tobio, unsuccessfully. However, his scent betrayed much more panic than aggression, and Sakusa was quick to rush over, and with a little softer approach, tried to bring him down as well. But it wasn't working. It wasn't enough. Let me go. Are you sure? Yes, I've snapped out of it. Just let me get to Tobio. Hesitantly they did, while hovering close as they followed him over to the younger alpha. He was whimpering now, his forehead leaning against Sakusa's but still trying to break free from his restraint. Tobio, look at me. You'll be fine, I promise. The deep blue eyes looked at him doubtfully. His scent, closely resembling Suhamagiko blossoms, had soured with distress and fear, but he held his gaze. Have I ever lied to you? Especially when it counted. Especially when it came to the safety of our mates. Immediately he shook his head, and Atsumu nodded. He pressed a kiss to his temple, indicating for the two holding him to let go. Immediately Sakusa and Atsumu caught him. He'll be fine. From the corner of his eye, he saw that Hinata had awoken and was sitting up. His eyes found his, and they widened as he noticed the chaos. He tried to get up to breach the gap between them, but the paramedic stopped him, making Atsumu growl again. Sakusa looked at him sternly at the sound before following his gaze. They walked over slowly under the close observation of their teammates and coach, and probably every bystander and camera in the room. It wasn't every day that a volleyball match ended with nearly 3 alphas going feral, without a fight breaking out nonetheless. Shoyo, are you okay? He nodded, looking still dazed and confused. Immediately Sakusa looked to the paramedics for confirmation, and they cleared him, but said to take it very slow the next couple of days, and to check in with his doctor if he should experience cramps or bleeding. Bleeding? Why should he? He was cut off as Hinata tried to stand, but his knees buckled beneath him. Atsumu reached him first again, despite how close the medics still were this time. If he's clear, we can bring him home, right? There was a barely concealed threat not to touch him in his voice, and Sakusa sighed, exasperated, while Kageyama walked to support Hinata from his other side. He means thank you. The dark-haired gave a short bow to the medics and turned to consult with their coaches, while both of their teams worked to clear a path for them to leave and keep the reporters at bay. Coach. Foster was deeply engaged in a conversation with the Atlas coach, both looking rather worried and distressed. What now? You and your mates go home. Kageyama and Mia can't play anyway after going feral, and Hinata needs you. We'll take care of the rest. The Atlas coach nodded with a frown etched deeply into his features. Sakusa bowed deeply, his heart filled with gratitude. Thanks, coach. Hinata's health comes first. Make sure he rests properly. He needs it. I'm sure he'll explain everything later, but I really need you to have an eye on him. That caused his worry to reignite, and he nodded stiffly. His mind was working overtime to figure out what was going on. And Sakusa-kun? Thank you for staying so level-headed. I know that's not easy. Of course, coach. At once, he set to rush after his mates. The anxiety for his Omega ignited anew. Thank you so much for watching till the end. That concludes part 4. I really hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, that means we only have one more part to go in this mini-series. As I said, I am considering making more. However, I will need you to let me know if I should, like in the comments. Tell me if you actually really like this ship, if you want to see more of this storyline specifically, or like Omegaverse related storyline with this ship, because I have a couple of ideas for that specifically. As you all know, I really like Omegaverse. A special thanks goes out to my nerdy Nekos. If you want to get similar perks as them, like early access, check out the join button under this video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Also, feel free to tell me your favorite quote from this video under the pinned comment. It would mean the world to me. Here are my other social media, and in the end cut we have more content including other Omegaverse AUs you might want to check out if that's something for you. Now I hope you have a wonderful and absolutely amazing day. Bye everyone!
Everybody just do your thing. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.